Is there anybody here in business with a spouse or a significant other? You are. What is the business? Okay, and how's it working out? It's good. You're making it work. Is there anybody in business without their spouse or significant other? And how's that working out? It's perfect. Good. Well, the reason I'm asking is because this segment is Till Death Do Us Part. I don't know why it's called that. A conversation on marriage and entrepreneurship. And who better to lead this conversation than the Prices? That's right. Help me welcome to the stage Aaron Price, Rebecca Price, hosted by moderator Marc Yaconich. Come on up.
Thank you very much.
Now, before we get into it,
yes.
I don't know if this was planned. I don't know if this was legit.
What?
I don't know if this was obvious, but we're talking about marriage. There's a married couple here. There's something very special about today.
Today is our anniversary.
14
years, yeah.
14 years.
Yeah.
So you perfectly planned this entire thing around that.
It's really just the celebration of our marriage. Yeah. I don't even care about
entrepreneurship.
entrepreneurship.
This guy looks good. Charm everywhere. I can't wait to hear it. Yeah.
Can we just give a round of applause to Josh? He's been a great MC all day long. Really appreciate it. Follow him on his social media. What's your social? You give a shout out here?
It's Josh Carey on all the social platforms. Awesome. Cary.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate you joining us today.
Appreciate you guys.
So, yeah, you can sit. Oh, me in the middle?
Yeah.
Hello, everyone. I don't know what it is, but you on the outside, you're welcome. There are seats right here. Come on, hang out. I'm looking at you. You could give out drinks. So, I'm Aaron. It's great to be with you. This is my very good friend, Marc Yaconich. This is my wife, Rebecca Price. I asked Marc to lead this because he knows us very well. He has been with me in some of the darker moments, and I thought he could lean in around some of the true, authentic perspective of how some things have unfolded over the last few years.
So I appreciate it. Thank you very much for having me today. And this is going to be a great session. Throughout the day, I've actually had a bunch of people come up to me and say, so you get to interview the Prices on stage about their marriage, and they're letting you do that? Did they give you any areas where things you shouldn't talk about? And the answer is no. Gloves are off, so I'm really pleased to be talking about this today. I'm going to let them introduce themselves, and then I'm going to dive into things. So I think you've met Aaron, our host today, CEO of Tech United.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Rebecca Price. I am Aaron's wife. I am also an operating partner at Primary Ventures. We invest in seed stage companies in New York City. I come from being a former chief people officer, so now I get to work across our entire portfolio of 60-plus companies and help them scale and grow.
And my name is Marc Yaconich. I'm the chairman and CEO of a company called Column 6 that's focused on making better ad experiences in connected television. I'm also an investor and an entrepreneur at heart. So that qualifies me to ask these hard questions and talk about this topic. But I want to start out with a quote. So I'm not sure if any of you have...
From who?
Ben Horowitz.
Oh, okay.
So I'm not sure if any of you...
What did I say?
We're getting there. Don't worry, dude. But I want to start with a quote from Ben Horowitz in his book, The Hard Thing About Hard Things, which is a great book about entrepreneurship. And the quote is, I'm going to read it so I don't paraphrase, when someone learns to drive a race car, one of the first lessons taught is that when you're going around a curve at 200 miles an hour, do not focus on the wall. Focus on the road. If you focus on the wall, you're going to drive right into it. If you focus on the road, you will follow the road. And running a company is exactly like that. And we can speak from personal experience. There are endless things that are happening, good and bad. You have to focus on the road in front of you. What this quote doesn't capture is family and marriage. Because while you are driving at 200 miles an hour, there is a spouse sometimes sitting next to you, and sometimes two beautiful children in the back. And you have to decelerate from 200 miles an hour riding down the road, running your company, to drop kids off at soccer practice, or to go out on a date night. Do all those things that are so important to keeping your marriage intact. And so that's what we're going to focus on today. We're going to focus on how you actually mix that into an entrepreneurial journey and how marriage and family and entrepreneurial things kind of interact. And we have a great case study here in Mr. Price. So Aaron is a career entrepreneur, and I'm going to let him and Rebecca just kind of narrate a little bit through his entrepreneurial journey. And we'll ask some questions along the way. So, Aaron?
Yeah, I'll try to go quickly, but basically,
Can I start? I'm going to
why
start
don't we
earlier.
have you? Go ahead.
Go for it.
Because when I
Yes.
met Aaron, the story that sticks with me was his mother is back in the back row. Aaron loved his mom's brownies so much.
Oh, you're going way back.
I'm going way back, because this goes way back. That he tried to sell his mom's brownie recipe, right?
Yeah.
Right? And then the second thing, Aaron took gas, what is it called? The
Gas caps off the vehicles. I'm
off
impressed
all
you
the
remember
cars
that.
in the neighborhood and tried to sell them back to the neighbors for their car. So when we say he's an entrepreneur at heart, it goes way back. We can go through all the businesses that he started, but it's been there from the beginning.
It's been in my blood for a long time.
Yeah.
I think we were just collecting the gas caps, not stealing them,
It's a good
and
story.
selling them. But my brother and I patented something in high school that we tried to commercialize that didn't really have much of a market, what now would be called like a total addressable market. In college, my best friend and I started what would be today Seamless.com. It was called Deliver You, one of the first online food ordering services for restaurants in a very different era. Company called eFordables. We sold excess inventory for retailers. And there's just, others. But ultimately turned into the New Jersey Tech Meetup because it was a very solitary career path. That drove this sense of community every single month. It was yelling for more attention. I was kind of ignoring it because I wanted to be a software tech CEO, not like this community guy. Started Propelify, acquired 3 years later, and here we are. But I don't want to spend too much time on this. But
No, this is perfect. So, Rebecca, did you know what you were getting into with Aaron in his entrepreneurial journey?
I think the and then there were some others. Is probably like many long chapters that when he tells the story, you can gloss over it. But those were like many of our early years together. I would say when I met Aaron, I was very much drawn to like the big dreamer, the big visionary, we can do anything. Like I love that spirit, and so I didn't really know. I wasn't really exposed to entrepreneurship as a young child, and when I met Aaron, I didn't articulate it in that way or know it in that way, but I knew that he was a big dreamer.
So let's dig into that,
Yeah.
because there are a lot of and by the way, this is the path of the typical entrepreneur. As much as I'd like to say everybody goes from 0 to 100 very quickly, the reality is there's always a journey that's ups and downs, and those entrepreneurs that are typically successful are the ones that can weather the ups and downs and kind of create some evenness. So relative to your marriage and your journey, how has marriage worked in the context of going and building these things? Like, do you find that you support each other a lot?
I mean, I would say that there were definitely moments it did not work, and I would take a lot of that blame. There were part of being someone who's a big dreamer is that you have a lot of ideas and a lot of what if this and how about that, and I didn't appreciate how bringing that into your marriage could really take a toll on someone who's not built like that, or just probably any spouse, but in particular, Rebecca's more of a planner and less of a maybe and less, right? And so it took a big toll. We were talking about this a little bit earlier. I might come home and say, oh, these 15 great things happened today. Maybe one of them turns into something. Maybe none of them turn into something. To me, that's the journey. To her, it's like, great. Like, probably 12 of those 15 will be great. And after months and years of that narrative, it starts to degrade trust, I think, in a relationship, which took us a little while to figure out how to navigate.
So what are the things that you, as a couple, kind of arrived at? Were there kind of conclusions that you came to, or there practices that you put in place to kind of moderate that communication?
Well, I'll say that, I was very drawn to Aaron's, like that big dreamer mentality. And even in my job today, I love working with founders. I love working with people who are big visionaries. I love helping like that journey from founder to CEO and help people really realize their dreams. That's what I do for a career, and I love that. And the struggle for me was I never wanted to be the person to tell Aaron to stop dreaming, or this dream you have isn't working anymore for our family. Like, we need more structure, we need more predictability, we need more just general income. We have kids, we have a house, we have expenses. Like, it just felt like such a party pooper mentality to be like that voice. And it took me, looking back, I felt like I had communicated that a lot, but looking back, it took me many years to be very clear of to say this isn't working, we need a change, and I'm okay if it means being that dream crusher.
So it seems like
But I
maybe-
wouldn't say, just to be fair, I don't think I don't ever feel like you crushed my dreams, but there were some practical needs in the family, and it was important to have an honest conversation about what those needs are and how
Yeah.
it might deviate from the things I want individually versus what we want as a family.
So let's call this lesson number 1 in marriage and entrepreneurship, which is honesty and communication, I think. Invariably, there are ups and downs in an entrepreneurial journey. It seems like it should be self-evident that clear and honest communication is required to work through these things, but it really is the heart, I think, of a successful kind of entrepreneurial support system.
Yeah.
Let's talk about entrepreneurial support.
Yeah.
Are there any things that you do as a family to share communication? Do you help each other in your careers in terms of communication, stress, support? Are there specific things that you try to do to help each other?
You want me to take that? Well, I alluded to this earlier, but I don't bring home those 15 maybes anymore. I get very excited easily. What if we did this? And then my mind just goes, and I'm like there. Anna's in the audience who works on Team Tech United can very much relate. And it's probably like, Rebecca, I feel you. But I don't bring those home. I wait until they have a little bit more meat on the bone, and I have a sense that they may pan out before I start getting excited about it. And this could happen, and this could happen, and this could happen, and we'll do a giant event in Hoboken in the pandemic. It'll be great. That's a huge one, because it's easy. I think part of what makes entrepreneurs work, we have James Altucher here who talks about the idea muscle and constantly thinking about new things and new ways to solve problems. And that's very much a part of me, but a byproduct of that in a marriage is that the other person is not always thinking that way, and they're just thinking of some stability and some reliability. And so I think holding back at home, sharing more, like I've shared a lot with Marc and other friends, many of you who I've met at the meetup and here, to sort of vet things and see how far they go before I kind of decide. I wouldn't say I hide them, just a little bit more selective, so that I know when it's worth sharing something that may not work out and something that will.
Any comment there?
Yeah, I think the stakes are higher. If Aaron and I were friends and it wasn't as personal, talking about the big ideas is great when it's great, now good luck with that. But when it's so personal and the implications are so steep of, well, are we going to be able to pay our rent? And are we going to be able to send our kids to school? And what does this mean for my career and my job? Because maybe I want, so I think it's also knowing your audience and being sensitive to those other dynamics.
So one of the, maybe lesson number 2 I'm going to take from this, also Aaron mentioned, which is, I believe, it really helps to have people that you can talk to, right? Ultimately, you just need to be able to share what you want to do, but and you need a support system, friends, spouses, etc. Because once again, invariably, this is a roller coaster career pursuit.
Yeah.
Do you think that being married makes you a better entrepreneur?
I don't know. Different. I don't think it's better or worse. My risk, being an entrepreneur is about having a certain amount of a risk profile, that you are willing to take some amount of risk that if it doesn't work out means a certain thing. When you're single, I remember being very deliberate when my friends went on the traditional career path of getting normal jobs after college, many times thinking this is an opportunity in my life where I could take the most amount of risk. Why would I go work for XYZ big company when if I fail, I could get a job in 2 seconds and my expenses are so low?
Yeah.
When you get married, your risk profile, hi Penny, our daughter's back there, your risk profile changes dramatically. And so I think it's a shift of, you need a partner who is okay with a certain amount of risk, and I think we were very misaligned for a while. And then I think you need to be, prepared for, okay, well then in this bucket of risk, these are the sorts of things I can do. But if I start to go outside of it, too high, you then begin to risk your marriage. You begin to risk other things. So it's, to me, it's about, it's a change of risk profile that for me was a very slow, rusty gear that finally clicked into place.
I see. So I'm going to change tacks a little bit. And so, Rebecca, is there anything that Aaron thinks he's very good at that you don't think he's very good at?
Very few.
Obviously. Yeah.
But one thing comes to mind. So, just before this, Aaron was saying, I'm so great at celebrating the wins
I don't know
and
if I said that.
recognizing like my achievements and like I just talked down on that stage.
Well, I said it.
But I really think that Aaron is maybe all entrepreneurs are like tormented by the constant moving of the goalpost. Aaron sets a goal, and as soon as he achieves it, it's not enough. He sets the next goal, sets the next goal, sets the next goal, and so he's living with this constant state of wanting more. And I think there's been so many moments of like opportunities to celebrate and recognize the wins and that are missed, and so I think I think that's the.
But isn't that a little bit of the magic that makes a great entrepreneur, right?
Yeah, it definitely gives the drive, but I think it can also bring the burnout as well. If you always feel like you aren't accomplishing, so it's probably a balance, right?
Yeah.
Take a moment to celebrate, recognize, set the next goal.
So let me reverse that question now. So let me try to get this wording right. Aaron, is there anything that you think that Rebecca is not very good at that she thinks she's very good at?
Today's my anniversary, right?
I don't care. You said any question goes.
Big fans and the kids. We did talk about this a little backstage, but nothing really does come to mind. I think she's pretty self-aware. I think that's what makes her good, certainly at her job, but also probably as a spouse. So, no, I'm going to punt on this question. There's nothing super interesting that I would say that I think she's lacking, that she thinks she's great at, that she isn't.
So, Rebecca, in your role as an operating partner, you get to have a front row seat to the development of all sorts of companies. When you're looking at teams, do you actually believe that do you judge kind of married founders as being maybe a little bit more attractive from a risk profile perspective, or is there any difference, or is that not something that you really consider or look at all?
Well, I think there's like an HR compliance issue there, which is
Sure.
you can't really ask people if they're married or not. But I am I think particularly because of my relationship with Aaron, I am extra sensitive to how lonely being an entrepreneur is, how isolating it is, the doubt that can come in, the trough of sorrow, if anyone knows that term. And so I very much, whether someone doesn't have a partner and needs someone to talk to, or they do have a partner and I'm very sensitive that they don't bring all of it home, I'm very sensitive to being there, being present, and being a sounding board or a voice on the other end of the phone to be a release valve for all of the founders and CEOs that I work with, just to like get it out, give them empathy, and help them so that then when they get off the phone with me, they're like, they've gotten it out and they can move on.
Got it. So let's talk about the children. So Ruby and Penny, are they here?
They seem to have walked away, but they are selling bracelets down there if you want to support the Price family. Apparently, we still need to pay the rent, so they're selling bracelets in booth 72.
As long as they're not selling beer. So how do you find the children intersect with the entrepreneurial journey?
I think it's directly. I think I'm a much better father now than I was earlier because I'm much more present. I don't celebrate all the wins, but I celebrate more than I ever did before.
Sure.
And maybe outside of the 2-3 weeks preceding this, I'm much more present. Literally this. I'm much more present than I was before.
Yeah.
So I
And
hope.
happier.
I'm definitely happier for sure. But I hope that the bracelets thing, I do sort of we push them a bit to try to be entrepreneurial, to see what this is about, to understand what it means to have an idea, and then, as we say here, to propel it into action. But I don't try to force it upon them. I hope that we can inspire them. To me, entrepreneurship's about solving problems and having some ownership in your own future. And I hope that we can inspire that in them. But I think forcing it is probably impossible.
But I think we talk about work a lot. We talk about the risks we're taking. We practice. If we have a presentation, we'll practice it with the kids. We talk about interviews or things we're nervous. I think we try to share that just because we're grown-ups, we also are going through things and are nervous, scared, worried, fail. So I think whether they can become entrepreneurs or not, I do think we're deliberately don't shield them from our work, what's going on with us at work. I
did want to follow up on a point from earlier, unrelated to the child thing. I think a common thread of the people who attend this event, of all of you and all of our speakers, it's not so much the entrepreneur's goalpost change. I think someone who's very ambitious, however that comes to life, whether you're a professional athlete or you choose entrepreneurship or you just excel in a large corporation, I think there's this incredible drive to do something big and great and meaningful. And it's very easy to move that goalpost constantly. And so I do think there's a lesson in general, outside of just being an entrepreneur, about trying to find the balance, which I have not yet fully found, but I'm better at it, of celebrating that win doesn't mean it's admitting that you're done. And I think that's what it's about. There are people who like win the Super Bowl who are not satisfied. And I think if you can find some balance about like, that is really good, I can still have drive, but I can also relax for 5 minutes and claim this win. I think that's, it's not just an entrepreneurial thing. I think it's a general ambitious individual.
So zinger question for you. I'm going to ask Erin this question first. Erin, is there any advice that you'd like to give Rebecca as she is, pushing down the career path here? Is there any area that you think that Rebecca should work on?
2 things come to mind. One is Rebecca doesn't always feel like she deserves to be in the role that she's in, but she's a very smart, accomplished, Ivy League educated woman who deserves the role that she's in. You can't do it all, so it's okay to let some of those things go. And that was 2 things, but there was actually, I guess, another one, and now I forgot what it was. But the idea, you've definitely earned your role as a woman in your career, and I don't know, it'll come to me and I'll chime in, but that one's a big one.
Yeah.
Anything for you, Rebecca? Anything? Any coaching to Aaron as he continues his entrepreneurial journey?
Enjoy it. I think I just want to make sure Aaron, and I've said this to him, because I've seen founders who they've raised their Series B, they've got hundreds of employees, and I know if you're just starting out, you would look at that founder and be like, they made it. But then that Series B founder, CEO is they don't feel like they've made it because they're like, I gotta grow, I gotta get my C, I gotta get an exit. So, and it can be taken away in a second, right? And the time goes so fast. So I think I just want to make sure that my advice is just to enjoy the moment. We can be ambitious and want more and to grow more, but to enjoy and appreciate this moment because we're gonna get old and look back and be like, that was so fun. We sat on stage and talked about our marriage. Just enjoy.
Are we gonna say that? It is challenging. I walked around today. I mean, who thinks today was generally successful and good? Do you have a good time? Great.
Absolutely.
It takes me, it's a very active effort to not see some of the flaws, to not see the missed moments. I've already talked to these guys. It's not well lit enough on stage, and I know how the videos are going to look, and I'm like, shit, we got to get that right. But that's a disaster because it's awesome. And so getting out of your own way in those moments, I think is for me, a struggle. But I'm much more aware of it than I ever was before.
Well, that's all the questions that I had.
That's it?
Anything that you want to add?
We have 3.5 minutes left, Mark.
Okay, let's.
I have a question for you.
Please.
How do you, you basically played business therapist in many ways by accident.
To us.
How do you, certainly to me,
Yeah.
but often to us. Oh, if it was to me, it had a byproduct of to us regardless. How do you think the change has been especially since the acquisition with the New Jersey Tech Council?
I think that when you make career decisions, especially entrepreneurial career decisions, you're trying to optimize for a lot of things. But generally speaking, when you're an entrepreneur, it's risk. It's reward and risk. But the reality is when you have family involved, there's this other big leg to the stool. It's so critical. And actually the other stuff doesn't work or mean anything unless you can sort that out, especially in the context of marriage. And so I think for you guys, this has been finding that strong third leg to the stool.
Yeah.
It's a balance of all these things and opportunity that you've been training to do for so long.
I wonder what either of you think of. There are entrepreneurs like Marc Lore, who some of you may know, who started Jet.com and sold it to Walmart and is now starting a City Tolosa. Fascinating entrepreneur. He's one who will talk about always being in 6th gear, about having no safety net, you jump out of the plane without a parachute. Clearly that did not work well for us. I don't think that I can live like that. I can live a little like that. But I'm curious what either of you think about sort of that all-in crazy risk mentality.
I mean, it's such a personal thing for an entrepreneur, right? You're constantly trying to kind of do this balancing act and minimize through structure, through equity, through the way that you're taking an investment, you can take all sorts of crazy risk. And the reality is, listen, if you're going to build a business, you're going to take risk. And it can be real personal risk. That's just the nature of this thing. You can't avoid that. So I think by its very nature, we're in the risk business, as you said before, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's a very, very personal decision. I do think when you're in your family, in your relationship, something I found with my wife, Natalie, I mean, you just have to talk about this stuff. You have to communicate very clearly what the risk is, why you're doing it, what the downside is, but also what the upside is, and get in the same boat. And once we do, from a family perspective, I find I'm in a much better place to operate.
Yeah.
And I think like it needs to be, this is what we didn't do well, it needs to be time bound. Like it can't be into perpetuity risk. So like Aaron and I were in a relationship, I mean today's our 14th wedding anniversary, but you add 2 years on top of that of dating. There was probably 10 years of like unlimited risk where it's like maybe that was too much. Like year 1 it was fine, year 2 was fine, right? But then it compounds at like years 9, 10, 11. It's like no more jumping out with no parachute. Like, so I think it's okay, but I would encourage people to like have limits before you call it and say, okay, it's not working. New plan. Let's put a parachute on.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, what advice, if there's someone here
Yeah.
like Justin, who we've seen growing up, who's started with us as a volunteer from high school, is now graduating from Stevens soon. Maybe we can get him to blush. But let's say in a few years, Justin maybe settles down, decides to get married. I know he's very entrepreneurial. What advice would you give him, and in particular, what advice would you give his potential future spouse about, like, you know, how to navigate? Besides just being open and honest, like that, there's a lot of ways that unfolds.
I mean, it totally is gonna. Hi, Justin. I think we've covered it. I think it's really about just being super clear with your partner. Of like it like took me a long time to even be clear with myself, and then clear with Aaron. Of like, these are my boundaries. These are my limits. This is what I'm okay with. This is what I'm not.
Can we play this out for a minute? Like, you know that I have this. It's okay. I own the clock. We have I feel this very strong ability to build $1 billion business. Mm-hmm. Tech United is not that business. Mm-hmm. And we've talked several times about like what's next and what does that turn into.
Right.
I'm going to use Justin again because I like Justin. I know Justin has that same burning feeling. And at some point, his potential future spouse may be like, no.
Well, I think it's, you know, I'm a psychologist, so I think there's Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which like $1 billion business is like the top, self-actualization, but you have to like have food, water, shelter first. And I think like those basic needs were missing, like metaphorically in a way. So now that I feel like we have those basic needs, we can like have those big dreams because I don't have the same insecurities around how are we going to like pay our bills.
I think that's the key to what was different, because I have this maybe it's ego, I don't know what it is, but like to me there was never a doubt about. I mean, to be clear, we weren't living on the street, we could pay our bills, but we weren't growing the family future that we wanted to grow towards. I had a lot of confidence that whether it was a year or 10 or 20, that we would wipe out all that risk. And I just think it was about your risk profile is dramatically different, which I fully respect. That's not a critique. But maybe, you know, getting back to the theme we said earlier, just having an upfront conversation. We didn't have that conversation until, like, I don't know, 3 years too late.
Well, now we're getting into it. Because it is risk profile, but it was also like what my day-to-day life was like. Because I was like working full-time, being the breadwinner, had 2 babies, all the childcare, like a lot of the house stuff. It was just like, it was too much. So
just to be clear, it wasn't like a deadbeat dad.
No, but it was like I had like, it was a lot. It was a lot.
Well, that's all the time we have.
It
was a lot.
It wasn't just risk. It
Having
wasn't
a
about
young family
potential
is a
unknowns.
lot.
It was like the day-to-day.
Having a young family with 2 stable working parents is a lot. Having one of them kind of going rogue is that much more.
Yeah.
Would you agree with? Maybe
Totally.
I'm asking that question.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, I mean, it's about like the Marc Lore thing, like over the years and years and years, it just like like the flame starts to burn. Not our flames, but
Can we end on a good note though? How's it going now?
It's great. I've been to every Propelify. This is the best one. Shout out to the team. It is great. And Aaron, very low stress over the last couple weeks. There were many
Shockingly
years
low.
where that was not the case. He's happy.
The first year, and we'll wrap in a moment. The first year of this, I don't know, a week or two before the event, I remember vividly thinking, like laying in bed, I couldn't sleep, my heart was pounding, and I was thinking like a person who has a heart attack imminently probably feels like how I feel right now. And we've come so far. We have come so far, the organization with people like Anna, we're going to talk about that in a minute, but it's significantly better. And I'm doing my best to celebrate the wins and not to tell Anthony about the lights suck.
And on that note, everybody, I'd like you all to give a big round of applause to these and help me celebrate their anniversary. And by the way, they sat up on stage and let us hear about their marriage for 30 minutes. So
Thank you, Marc.
thank you very much.
Thanks for being a good friend to us.
With my in-laws and my mom here. All right, so thank you very much. Happy anniversary.